work. There's some people, uh, there's some people who are like car collectors. They're fascinated how automobiles work, right? And or people are fascinated with numbers and finance. I'm just fascinated by human beings, and I notice things, and uh, along the way, I've collected a lot of thoughts and ideas about relationships and parenting, uh, and they've just been kind of part of the collection. I haven't done anything with it, and I finally decided I wanted to take on life coaching. The life coach school, they tell you to pick a niche, like what are you good at, what's working well in your life. And I have an extraordinary relationship with my ex-wife, and we have a great family relationship. I have two adult kids, and I really saw that we were doing something right. We still do things together as a family all the time, and I would like to think that for my kids, it's actually for having divorced parents, it's like about as good as it gets.
Mm.
So I started to get interested in what it looks like to having a relationship that really works for your children. And then I started discovering some things that if I could do it over again, I don't have regrets. I think we were both loving uh, parents who put the kids first and did everything we know how to do. But if I had it to do over again, there are a bunch of things that I might do differently. So I started, gathering those ideas, and putting them into uh, my own package.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like even beyond the traditional parent role, like you do definitely take on that. You're a parent for a lot of others, right? Like even the 60 something of us on in Landmark on team, right? I definitely feel like you're always causing us and standing for us to be better and look at and take responsibility and your integrity and you're always holding us to a higher standard. So I just really appreciate, like, I definitely feel like, and I'm sure many of us can say that we look to you like a father in many ways.
Thank you. So look, I mean, one of it's not so great getting older, but one of the things I've discovered is you get more experience in life, and some wisdom comes with it. So, I love passing that along.
Yeah. And you mentioned so that's beautiful because, as you know, not when people break up, right? It doesn't always sound like how you described it, extraordinary. And right, I think the words you use say a lot about just being intentional, and it took a lot of work, right? Like it didn't happen overnight. Um, would you share maybe one or two things that you felt like you said, looking back at it, that you wish you would have done differently?
Okay. Well, the other day, uh, Leslie, my ex, calls me, and so we're humans. We even as adults, we default to the way it was in the household. It's I've just noticed that. I'll never forget, like when I first was dating Leslie, I went to meet her family, and saw that as adults, they still played the same roles within the family. And anybody in the family will tell you that. So you get together with the family, and everybody defaults to who they were in the family, right?
Yeah.
And you go to a high school reunion, and it's the same thing. Everybody defaults back. So Leslie actually called me, and like both kids were angry at her, and she said, like, they're both making me wrong for everything,
Hmm.
for everything I'm saying and doing. And I said to her, like, where do you think they got that from? It's us. It's like what we taught them,
Hmm.
and so it wasn't conscious. A lot of where I'm coming from it's about a consciousness. It wasn't conscious, and for the, I think that, for all of the years that our marriage was struggling, that we still sort of put up a good game face. Like, I don't think it, there was horrible screaming in the house, maybe a little, but like, generally, I would say we managed it fairly well. But, what I discovered, and particularly, through, at this point, I've done 14 years of landmark work, there's the, there's a big focus on not making things wrong, right? And we just would, like, volley in tennis, like, make wrong, make wrong, make wrong, make wrong. And that was life. I have, like, a really funny model for it. It's, I don't know, Davidson, I think a lot of the people have, like, if you know Mr. and Mrs. Costanza, in Seinfeld, George's parents, like, they made it just like the, humor out of, like, it's like the craziness of life. But that couple was just committed to, like, arguing each other, like, everything that came out of their mouth was inside of an argument, right? And that's kind of what we get taught. Like, our parenting styles were taught to us by our parents, and they were taught by their parents, and we take the good and the bad from it, right? But there's also a lot that we don't even realize that we take from it, and that's how we behave in relationships. So there's a lot of, like, tit for tat, pointing, a lot of like, justification. You did this, and so I did that. A lot of blame, and so one of the foundational principles. So life coaching is really about having people see things for themselves, and so is relationship. But I think a lot of life coaches, and you could probably speak to this also, still, like, operate from some of their own foundational principles. And so, my amongst my foundational principles are, taking responsibility for who you're being in the relationship, for leadership by example, like that. I've always been inspired by, like, leadership by example. But yeah, like, in your parenting, start to be conscious about, like, the like, you don't realize what your kids are absorbing. So the model that you're setting for your parents. So, I mean, those are just a few of the principles. But I actually came up with a a premise. So I call it's like a premise, a context, a belief, a place to parent from, is what I call it. For parents, it's really simple. Are parents going to remember it most of the time? No, but if you kind of bring yourself back to it, and that's that, like, what am I demonstrating to the kids about when they grow up? So I before the call, you and I spoke, and I mentioned that that parents typically are the place that they come from is that their children get a good education, that their children are, like, function in their social relationships, and that they hopefully grow up and have a successful career. But parents don't necessarily give any thought to, well, what how are they going to be when they're in a relationship? And so what's the model I'm setting for them? And then how are they going to be, what's the model they're going to set for their parents? So I came up with this project, and I haven't worked it all the way through yet, but it's called the Generating Generations Project.
Ooh,
And it's to get literally to start to change the context for for parenting. I don't consider myself a parenting expert by any means. I just think I have like a valid idea, and everybody I speak to seems to agree that what if as parents we started really, coming from a place of, oh, my behavior is going to, actually make a difference,
Mhm.
15, 20 years from now when my kids are in their own, adult relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. I think many of us don't take responsibility. Oh, Lizzie said, yes, I love the name. It's so catchy. And it
Thank you.
and it really speaks to the legacy and like the impact that we all have exponentially, right? We tend to forget sometimes like how much impact we have in the world, and just being with that and truly seeing the ripple effects. It's a lot to be with sometimes, right? It's
Yeah.
maybe I'm making it significant, but I do feel that it's yeah, just thinking back to, even with, I don't have kids yet, but even just being a husband for the first time, like there's been so many times where I've placed the blame on my wife, and man, if I just took 100% responsibility, right? Like what would that look like? And recently, I would say in the last couple months, I've been doing much more of that, and it's just great that our relationship has really grown, right? And it's like from your clearing and just how you're being like really just being 100% responsible is something that I learned just being with you, so I really appreciate this project, and I love the name too, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, by the way, you said so that like the whole concept is that exponential thing that you're pointing to is that, like one step at a time. Like if we start to get the word out there, then it actually can make an impact on future generations. I had a coach who said something to me, which it hadn't even occurred to me. Um, but he asked me like, so what's important to me? What am I out to like create about this? And I said, well, like, what if 1,000, couples were actually like taking this on? And he says to me, yeah, like, what if 1,000 couples were practicing the Abelson method? And that cracked me up. I never even thought of that, right? Uh, and kind of at that moment thought about like my father, my grandfather, and like, wow, imagine if there was like an Abelson method, right? So
Mhm.
like, I don't need to name it an Abelson method. That's not the point. But like, what if I actually like could make that type of difference in the world? That that's extraordinary, and it's like it's all like actually very simple, um, but like exponentially, it keeps growing from that 1,000 also.
Mm. Yeah, and then like you said, and those 1,000 people, you don't know how many more like people that they'll
Mhm.
impact. Maybe they'll be so inspired by your method that they continue to share that to, and they become what you're doing, right? Like a parenting life coach, and it's just, yeah, that's beautiful.
And then, the really cool thing about it, if you think about it, is then their next generations too, right?
Yeah.
So, hence the generating generations like that this actually can just keep growing.
Yeah, yeah, that's a cool thing. And I'm curious because I think everything starts with an idea. Um, are you planning to like host workshops, or would you write a book on it? Like, what are your thoughts in terms of how you?
Like, I don't see myself as an author. That's for sure. I never did. However, I like, that's possible. So I've started having conversations with a team about like, now how do we grow this? And it really, starts with me starting to put the word out. So, I mean, put it this way: if it becomes a book, trust me, there's going to be a ghostwriter involved, because I ain't writing it myself. But maybe, so I am putting together um, you know, a uh, I'm searching, what's it called? Ah, what did Napoleon Hill, like, what was,
Oh, Think and Grow Rich. That one.
yeah, no, it's, but he put together like a think tank. There was another word for it,
Ah,
but
yes.
yeah. So I am putting together a think tank to help me like build upon my ideas, and and also frankly, I've been I like to think of myself as kind of like young at heart. But I've basically been like an old dog about social media and whatever. So, but I actually have people who've agreed to support me in like building my social media and,
Yeah.
and getting the word out that way. So if
Yeah.
it could turn into, YouTube videos or whatever, like
Yeah.
awesome. I'm not there yet though.
Yeah, it's interesting. My one friend said it really well. She said like it's it's if finding you, and it's not what they know about you, is but what they can find out about you that like really resonated with me. I've been fortunate that because of social media, like it really has helped me like find this amazing job I have now, right? And just the power, like if I'm truly present to like just the power of what just social media has helped me, like it's giving me my whole career. It's just crazy to think how lucky I've been, just because I just consistently just been putting myself out there. And then before you know it, you're like, you wake up and you're like, whoa, like my life is pretty awesome. And I would say I owe a lot of it to social media, honestly. And then someone said something. Oh, the Institute. Yes, Ken, the Abelson Institute.
That's,
Yes.
as long as it's not the institution, I got it. Thank you.
That's great. And I'm curious, like, because you've done a lot of like Tony Robbins, you've done a lot of different seminars and all these different programs. And it sounds like everything contributed. Was there like one thing that really helped you? Would you say like was the most transformative in terms of like realizing these parenting things and the stand that you're having in the world in regards to parenting?
Well, I mean, I would say it started at life coach school where they said, pick a niche. And then I just started noticing, things just started showing up for me about like around parenting and relationships.
Okay.
One of the things I've seen is, um, at first I actually how I started in this was the divorcees with children, because you hear like so many disaster stories. I know fathers who aren't allowed to talk to their kids. Um, all sorts of stories of one parent using the kids against the other. So that in itself, was enough to get me like started on this path. And then I discovered like, well, why limit it to just like, divorcees? Why not parents
Mhm.
who are, struggling, um, and so maybe you can prevent the divorce right before it happens. And then
Yeah.
we just went through a year of like families being trapped together, and kids home from school, all of that stuff. So for some relationships it actually created bonding, and then for others, you know you're trapped with someone who you can't get along with, you know uh,
Hmm.
so there was all of that. So it sort of started with that, but also started noticing that I started talking to people about sibling relationships, parent child, um, you know, uh, uh, partners. Not necessarily. I don't coach singles. One type of relationship coaching is like coaching singles. So I don't necessarily coach singles and like how to find the one. But on the
Yeah.
other hand, I've also spoken to couples who who aren't committed yet for life, but they still have all the same relationship dynamics. Or it could be in the workplace too, like um, you know, uh, colleague, boss, colleague. you know, uh, all of those relationships, they're all, it's at the end of the day, it's all about um, your communication and, kind of your context for who you're going to be in the matter. Um, so like all of those relationship principles, as we said, for taking responsibility, like
Mm.
it, all the foundational things are all the same.
Yeah, and it's also like our relationship with ourselves too, right? It sounds like that's important as well, and it sounds like you cover some of that as well, right?
Look, I mean, everybody in every training, it always, comes down to, yeah, how are you going to love others if you don't love yourself?
Yeah,
So there's that piece of it, which is that, I mean, that's hard because like we're actually like trained to not love ourselves,
yeah,
um,
yeah,
so there's that. That's again, that's like one of the foundational pieces of it, but also taking responsibility for yourself is, all your results are all what you've created, and the good and the bad of it. And if you want to just have happier relationships, um, just a more joyful life, like take responsibility for who you are, um, you know in every situation.
yeah. I love And what I love about you, Ken, is you don't let people off the hook. Like anytime where we lack any integrity at all, like some people they'll let it slide. It's like, oh, it's only 30 seconds, or oh, it's not, it's a small thing, but you're always on it. So I love the rigor. I love the stand because you're standing for like, hey, like once you take 100% responsibility, trust me, your life will transform. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that about you. I think not everyone has that level of commitment. you know.
Well, I also I gather information, or evidence from just my experiences. There was one time where, like, I was really angry. Um, it really, I felt like I was thrown under the bus. Everybody else was to blame. I finally got myself, and it like took some, like calming down, being responsible for myself. I got myself to about like 98% taking responsibility, but there was still a little like blaming the other person. And then I went to talk to the other person and take responsibility. And I found that I was actually like fumbling, like it wasn't coming out. And they made a comment about like, well, if you want to learn how to like take responsibility, and that only made me madder. It's like I thought like like wait a minute, I know how to take responsibility, right? But it, like actually, I had like 98% wasn't enough. It's like
Wow.
in the 100% where and you know what happens, Davidson? Like you take 100% responsibility, you feel better. It's for you, actually.
Mhm.
That's the other thing too. It's like that's where you get your freedom. Um,
Yeah.
it's just um, you know getting that like right now this isn't working. What can I take responsibility for? And I've seen it in a lot of books, a lot of trainings. Um, one author said, take responsibility, like as a practice, take responsibility for stuff that you're not even in any way responsible for. But like just if it happened around you, then in some way you're responsible. And I mean, that was actually I took that on like a very cool practice.
Yeah. And it gives you power, right? It gives you the ability to like create newly, to start something new. I feel
Mhm.
like
Exactly.
yeah, I think that's the beauty about like being in a program like Landmark. Like there's just so many opportunities to clean up and take responsibility. I definitely know that when I wasn't in it for a couple of years, I would just let things slide, like this small thing here, small thing here, small thing here, and then before you know it, you're like, oh man, like I have a lot of stuff to clean up, But if you do it every day as a practice, then it's so much easier, and then you just feel freer, right? You feel like there's less unconscious stuff that really gets in the way, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love what you're saying about generating generations. Um what are your thoughts on like the new generation? Like, do you feel like like I hear two stories where, you know, the new generation like really does care and really does care about the environment, and just there's a more holistic view to it. Um, what are your thoughts in general in like the new wave of generation, and how they think about like taking responsibility, for instance?
Well, I have all sorts of opinions. I mean, I think awesome. I got to tell you something. I think that like our planet is in trouble, and we're using, look at climate. Look what's going on in the world. Climate change, all of that. So I love that. There's a consciousness about that too. Um,
Yeah.
and I mean, it might even be inside of like that type of thinking that I even came to this about, like, what are we teaching our children? You know?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, and what you said about like there's so much that we take from our parents, that the intergenerational, right? So it's like I haven't even met my grandfather before, you know, because he died like when my mom was only 9. And I'm sure there's a lot of like my grandpa that is passed on to me that I just don't even know about, right?
Mhm.
And we're so quick to blame our parents, like we're so quick to, I don't know anyone who is willing to take responsibility. Like most of us blame our parents for our stuff, right? I mean, I'm guilty of it as well. I mean, almost every day I hear someone say like, "Oh yeah, my dad like made me like this," right? It's like, where's the power in that?
Um, yeah, and so I recently discovered there was something. There was communication that wasn't working between three people, and like I never thought of it this before. Like, so if all three people all took 100% responsibility, like, so that concept I get. Like, if everybody takes, in a couple you might say, well, like, take 50, each person take 50% responsibility. Like, no, both of you take 100% responsibility. And in this case I was like, well, what if all three people took 100% responsibility? Wow, that would be like 300% responsibility. How cool would that be? um, yeah, so that yeah, ideally, as a couple, if if you can take that on, for couples, there's kind of like the default way of having relationships, and then there's created relationships, one where you're really working together to to create what you both want individually, and then reaching compromises.
Hmm.
uh, but like, what if you really practice, um, like, let's both of us take responsibility. And I got to tell you something. So we started with my relationship with Leslie, and um, I would say what really shifted things for us actually was when we both started. So we still, like, we'll still butt heads and fight once in a while. Um, and um, you know inevitably, like, I know if we get into a fight, and it really doesn't even happen too much anymore, that I'll get a call within like a half hour from Leslie, or I'll call her, and we'll clean it up. We'll both take like,
Wow.
actually what happens is, what I've discovered is, one person takes responsibility, and the other person appreciates it so much
Hmm.
that they're like, well, and you know what, I want to take
Yeah,
responsibility for
it's a
this
beautiful
also. It's
thing.
like,
Yeah.
it wasn't all you, it was,
Yeah.
it
So
was me too.
counterintuitive, but it works.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's,
so true.
not like works as a like, oh, I'm going to do this, for that, in order to get that result.
Right,
It's
right.
just like 100% responsibility, like, that's it's for you, it's for the other person. And then sometimes, they see something for themselves that,
Yeah.
like, you can walk away, um, like back on the path.
Yeah, I feel like it creates a clearing for them to feel like, oh, okay, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to admit that, that I was wrong or that I made a mistake as well, instead of
Yes.
trying to convince someone, and it never ends well when that happens.
Yes.
Wow. Well, that's beautiful, Ken. Yeah, I really enjoyed. Is there anything else that you would like to share? And maybe you want to share a little bit about, what people tend to come to you for? Like, is there like a specific breakdown that folks will typically call you for? Or
Actually, no, they just know things aren't working. Like, I'm not committed to, battling. Um, it's almost always that. Um, Certainly, sometimes, like, I can't seem to, like, I don't know how to communicate with the other person. And it could be, parent, child. Um, and, sometimes it gets tough because, you know, it's really hard to communicate with someone who's like unwilling to communicate with you. But it still always starts with working on yourself. Like very often, I say like, well, look, somebody's got to be the adult here, or if nothing else, like just one person has to like pave the way. In relationship coaching, if it's a couple, it's tricky because sometimes not both people want to be coached. Like, one person wants to, and the other one has no interest at all. So all you can do is like coach the one person on, supporting them and having their power in the relationship.
Mm.
Um, and if it works really well, the other person starts to see that there's been a shift,
uh,
and maybe is open to to just give it more of a try. Um,
mm,
I think what makes a huge difference in relationships is one person taking the initiative, um,
yeah.
and sometimes it even you know it takes, it's not just one initiative, it takes like an ongoing you know uh, ongoing practice of I'm going to be responsible, I'm going to be responsible, and then like
Mm.
eventually some of the guard breaks down, and something starts to uh, clear up.
Yeah, and it, like you said, it goes back to that person, like you said, really committing, like, hey, I'm gonna be 100% responsible first, right? And then once that happens, then the other person will start to open up and
Mhm.
start to see, like, okay, there's room for me to kind of let down the walls, right? So that I could at least try to hear what they're trying to say, right?
Yeah.
But it takes that one person to start that, to have that initiative first.
Mhm. By the way, there's one other thing that's showing up for me about relationship coaching, and that is like, so I'm not, you know, you're a coach also, and uh, so I chose not to be a real estate coach or a career coach, or there are a lot of ways I could have gone with it, but even the most successful people who have everything working, their career is going great, they're making tons of money, um, you know, that it might appear that like life is great, but
Mm.
um, you know, what happens when you're in the middle of like the workday, everything's going really well, and you get the call from the spouse, and you get into the fight about the kids, or again, I'm pointing to parenting, but it doesn't have to be that. It could be just a domestic disagreement, right?
Yeah.
So if life is going great, but your relationships aren't working, I have it that it's almost that comes first. Like
Mm.
that if you have that piece working, that will actually impact all of the other areas of your life. And
Uh,
if you don't, then you're going
yeah,
to, you might be able to like make things work in the office. Uh, but there's still like, you're not going to have the true enjoyment of it all until you have the foundational piece, which I think is the relationships.
yeah, yeah. Completely agree. Right. It's like such a foundation that everything else gets affected by it, whether you like it or not. Right. It's so important. Whenever any of my friends are having issues around a relationship, whether it's with their husband, I don't get into. Please call Ken. Such a miracle for me to hear them talk about what they have learned or how well his coaching transformed their relationships. Aw, that's beautiful. Yeah, Ken's the go-to guy.
Thank you. I don't even know who that is, but thank you, iPhone.
Just magical, just magical creations. Oh, that's awesome.
No, so that it happens to be. Look. So again, we're parents, so that's Leslie, my ex. But
Aw.
thanks. No, I mean that's the type of extraordinary relationship we have.
Hey, Leslie, would you mind do you want to share or do you want to say anything about this? I'm so glad you're here.
I'm putting her on the spot.
Okay, maybe not. It's not like that. No, I appreciate this conversation. As someone who, I didn't have a thought like my father left at a young age, and I didn't originally didn't have a good relationship with my mother. But this definitely reminds me of like just creating newly and what's possible, and also having forgiveness that like my parents, were human and like not holding them to such a high. Oh, Leslie said she does want to say something. Okay, I'll let you speak.
So, Les, you got to mute if you're talking.
Oops.
Ken,
Yeah. Hi.
hi. So I want to give an example because the concept is hard if you haven't done landmark to understand, taking full responsibility for yourself. But even though I have done landmark, it's still a really hard concept. And if I didn't have Ken to call, which can sometimes be every day, about a lot of relationships in my life, I really don't know what I would do. And that's why I truly mean that when a friend is having a problem, I just call him, please. I am personally having a relationship problem with my children, both of them. And, Ken hears it from their side and he's very kind not to tell me what they're saying. And he just coaches me just with the responsibility. And he opens my mind to see things that I would never, ever see. And it is an amazing process. And amazing things have happened. So we worked on my daughter, and that got to be amazing. And now we're working on my son. And I feel very confident that he and I will have the relationship that I want to have with him. As long Ken and I are speaking tomorrow. So I know I will get a lot out of the conversation.
Oh, thanks, Les. And look, it takes somebody who's willing to actually like be coachable, right?
Yes.
So that I think you have been taking responsibility, and that's great. And so there's like an example, like these things like happen in all families. Like I think also to just get that that's how we're set up to operate. It's this old model of everybody like pointing the finger at each other and not taking responsibility.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I think it was even in, so um, positive reinforcement as a parenting style has been around for like 40, 50 years now, where like parents really are trying to, just have kids see the best of themselves. But on the other hand, there's a lot of still pointing to what's wrong, what's not working, like a lot of opinions about like, this is how I think things should go.
Hmm.
So there's, and by the way, that's never like, look, I could, there's nothing I can say that can stop people from going to their like, their passed down generational default behaviors, but you can catch yourself and you can turn it around and make it more workable. And over time, build the muscle in who you're going to, like where you're coming from as a parent. And, again, that's all that I've been pointing to. It's like, let's start to shift it gradually, and who knows what type of difference that'll make in the world.
Can I just say one other thing?
Sure.
So one of the things that Ken really taught me that made a huge difference was to look at my children as adults. Because when you're a parent, I think you're always thinking of them as children, as your kids, and they need your advice. And once I was able to realize that my daughter is this amazing adult, everything changed. Everything changed. And that's something that Ken did teach me. And it's a hard concept. It's very hard, to accept help from a child or whatever, or accept advice from them. But when you do, it changes everything.
Yeah, thank you. So there's that too. And, it's a proven thing that mothers in particular really, have difficulty giving up like the being the mother thing, particularly as their kids become young adults. But, I can tell you that my mother, I don't remember specifically what it was, but it was a few years ago. And I don't know, she was telling me, I don't even remember what it was. I needed to comb my hair, or something like silly, like Mom, or something. I don't remember the advice, but it's like, Mom, I'm like 60 years old.
Oh.
Like, thank you. Like I figured this one out. So yeah, so like absolutely. I actually learned that from someone who really, again, my son was probably in his young 20s, and somebody said to me, like, he's an adult, like, you got to like start and our relationship, I think that made such a huge difference. I stopped making him wrong and trying to teach him like the way that I think things are supposed to happen in the world, and started, to like allow him to discover for himself, to, potentially fail by himself, but he's an adult. So yeah, as parents, I can say like that really, I think for, particularly for older teenagers, very often we're still attached to teaching them our way, and they're young adults already. And it's out for it's up to them to discover. It's not for us to like force our way of the world on them, because who says we're right? And particularly with younger generations, so much has like changed, just in so many ways, with technology, with the way we look at life, all of that. And again, like we're parenting from what we learned from our parents, where things were, there were like 7 TV channels, and there's nothing to watch on TV except for the TV shows about like the traditional families.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And Michael and Lizzie or Wendy, anything else you want to say or contribute to this conversation?
Hmm. I think I contributed enough.
She said Lizzie, not Leslie.
Oh, Lizzie. Oh, sorry.
No worries.
I thought I heard Leslie.
I I just want to acknowledge you, Ken, for really standing for people in their lives, their parenting, their relationships, for new conversations with their children that can really bring out like what's possible, the best in people. And Davidson, I also acknowledge you for opening up these spaces to get to know more of what is available in today's world and what can we create together in our listening and in supporting all of these initiatives. So wish you all the best.
Thank
That
you.
was really beautiful.
And
Yeah,
Michael?
thank you, Lizzie.
Yeah, thank you, Lizzie. We always appreciate your support. You're listening.
I think that's about all I got. I mean,
Okay.
Davidson, I appreciate so much like this opportunity to, really get to verbalize, like, again, a lot of the things that I've been kind of gathering and wanting to say to the world. And I know that this goes out to, the recording now goes out to a lot of your followers. So I want to thank all of them for listening as well. And yeah, let's like start making, let's start making the shift and taking this more of a consciousness for like who we are in the relationship and the impact that the negative impacts that may have and the positive impacts that we can like create if we really are consciously parenting, or never mind the parenting. There's that just in relationships in general.
Mm. Yeah, and just seeing how you two acknowledge each other and how you respect each other and relating to each other, it's beautiful, right? Like
Thank you.
not many, when people split, it's usually the opposite, right? Where they don't speak so highly of each other. So I really appreciate that as well. Gives me a lot of hope.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you where I come from. That like you actually have vows in in a wedding to care for each other for the rest of your life. So you don't necessarily have to to stay together. But like I have Leslie's back, and I know she has my back, and I think like knowing that, and in certain situations where I think we're still like each other's emergency contacts and whatever, things like that, because like I think that it has something to do. I don't know if this is the truth. I think it has something to do with that commitment that I made a long time ago. So yeah, I know we both want the best for each other, and that's So I'll throw in a plug for a like great book, Conscious Uncoupling, is about like having this, and we didn't read the book at the time, but it's about having like this type of extraordinary relationship where you can like move on and like be grounded in workability, like without the hatred or the just all of the
Disappointment.
like that comes up. So that's all available. So Davidson, I guess what I'll throw in is I actually have been slow about building my web page and all my social media. But like it actually, like I'm working on it. I am going to have all of that in place. In the meantime, if anybody is interested in having conversations about relationship coaching, I know your friends can certainly contact you, and I'll just put it out there. My phone number is 914-420-8819. My email is ken.abelson, ABELSON @gmail. And I'm happy to have conversations about, relationship coaching isn't necessarily for everyone, but like, let's talk about it and, see if it's for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And just a plug, just all the interactions I've had with Ken so far has been, yeah, I mean, Ken definitely takes the time to like get to know you, build a relationship. Like he really takes, like, you don't rush the process, and you really do give people the space to kind of share 100% authentically. Like I do feel like, I mean, it's crazy because you live in New York, but you do have that mentality of just truly providing people the time and the space to figure it out. Like you don't rush the process, which I appreciate.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think since I've met you, my life has been significantly better. So I really appreciate you, Ken.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. I'll post this on like iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, all that good stuff. And yeah, and I'll also include your email address and your phone number as well. And yeah, if anyone's listening who doesn't quite, there you go. Look at all that love that you're getting.
Thank you.
If anyone also wants me to share his phone number, his contact information, feel free to reach out and I'll definitely connect you all. All right. Thanks, everyone. Any last words, Leslie?
Nope. No, he really is. This is, I believe it's what he was meant to do. It's not what he started out doing, but this is what he's meant to do.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and that's something like I actually discovered that why not pursue what I really enjoy doing? What I think every human being has their, not to put religion in it, but their God-given talents or whatever, whatever you believe. But that we all have our talents, and if you can, pursue yours, how great is that? And in particular, yeah, I get that. Like, this is what I really enjoy doing, and when you enjoy doing it, it becomes like a vicious cycle. You become good at it, and if you're good at it, you love it. So thank you so much, Davidson.
Thank you. I think Michael, did you want to say something? You have your hand up.
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to share that, I've met a lot of people at Landmark and nobody has a larger toolbox than Ken. He has so many distinctions and the listening and the patience and the beauty and the love and the care. It's been a thrill meeting him in my life, and he's made a considerable difference.
Thank you, Michael.
Great. Thank you so
Of course.
much. All right. That's going to be hard to top that one. Well, thanks. Sounds like a good place to leave it.
Thank you, Davidson. This has been great.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.